So if he got 115, by rights, he should be appointed as a Prime Minister.
You don't see that as challenging the decision of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong?
If we want to challenge, we have to challenge immediately after that. Why don't we challenge it at that time? We accept it. Have you seen us going all over the country, do demonstration, go against the decision? No, it is just a political persecution.
Good morning. You're listening to The Breakfast Grill. I'm Shazana Mokhtar. Like most racially based political parties in Malaysia, Parti Pribumi Bersatu was born from the internal strife of UMNO back in 2016. But in contrast with predecessors, over the course of 5 years, Bersatu rose to the pinnacle of Malaysian politics under the premiership of Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, leading the Perikatan National Coalition. Now, following GE15, Bersatu was exiled to the opposition bench with staunch allies PAS. What are their plans to stage a comeback in the next general elections amid questions about their political identity? Joining me to discuss this and more is Datuk Sri Hamzah Zainudin, Member of Parliament for Larut and Secretary General of Bersatu. Datuk Sri, good morning. Welcome back to the Breakfast Grill.
Good morning, Shazana, right?
Yes.
So, sometimes when people ask me to come, and I said, no, not yet, until a certain time, because, we talk about politics, timing is very important.
Now is the right time, I presume.
And now is the right time.
Perfect. Let's jump right into it.
Right.
I want to ask, you are the leader of the opposition in the Dewan Rakyat. That is a role that's traditionally viewed as the Prime Minister candidate. Are you Perikatan Nasional's pick for PM?
You see, before I talk about myself, I would like to talk about my party, Perikatan Nasional. As what you said just now, it is about Bersatu. Not only Bersatu, actually. When we formed Perikatan Nasional in 2020, at that time, we were looking at some other parties to form the coalition. And I would like to be very frank here. Those days when we started, we have, of course, Bersatu and PAS, two big parties to be together with us. And at the same time, during the first time when we formed this party, MIC was with us for a few weeks, until somehow or other when they have the discussion among themselves, Barisan Nasional, and they called me up and I said maybe they have to wait until a certain time. So in the form, when we form our coalition party, Perikatan Nasional, MIC was a founding member. Then after that, we started to grow. We brought in the Gerakan, SAPP, Sabah, and from there, we move forward.
It is useful to go through this history, Datuk Sri, but I do want to note that today in 2024, it's a vastly different environment from 2020. So the past 4 years has seen the configuration change remarkably. I think we've seen Gabungan Parti Sarawak and Gabungan Rakyat Sabah. Both of them were part of PN at one point.
Yeah.
They have exited.
You know that.
And now it's PAS and Bersatu. You're the core members that have stayed together. I do want to know, is this a lasting alliance? Because PAS is known for being a fickle partner. They have had partnerships with everybody, including DAP.
That was the reason when I mentioned about the history, and I've told you just now, MIC was a founding member. But now, without MIC, we move forward. And it shows that we are very inclusive. It doesn't matter whether you are an Indian party or a Chinese party. If you are willing to work with us, with our ideology, just to make sure that the country is actually governed by a group of people who understand, who had all the experience for these, I think we welcome everyone. Okay. We are very open about that.
So MIC was not prepared to latch on to your ideology back then?
No, they were with us, but I think they have got some problem with Barisan Nasional, where they have got coalition with UMNO, with a few more other parties, maybe MCA and some party from Sabah. We said, okay, we don't mind to wait if they want to come in.
Okay.
But today, we have another one, MIPP, Malaysian Indian Progressive Party. They just join us. So then they become our Indian representative in our coalition.
So you have MIPP and you also have Gerakan, which represent the non-Malay communities in the country as part of your coalition.
You're right, Shazana.
Okay, I want to come back to the question that I asked you, Datuk Sri, from the beginning. Your appointment as opposition leader was surprising to some because the position typically goes to the party with the biggest share of seats in the coalition, and that would be PAS. They've got 43 parliamentary seats, if I'm not mistaken. Not only, though, did the opposition leader go to the perceived junior party, Bersatu, it's not even being held by the top leader in Bersatu, which is Chairman Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. So I have to say, I'm not saying you're undeserving because you have a record of policy making and in politics, right? But can you shed light on why you were given this role, if not to signal that you're one day going to be the future leader of the coalition?
If you realize just now, I was trying to avoid that kind of questions. I do not want to answer. But since you put on again asking me to answer that kind of questions, I would like to go back into the history. Immediately after the election, we realized that PAS won a bigger seats compared to us, Bersatu. And, our president, he's very open-minded, pragmatic. And he talked to the president of PAS and he said, okay, since you are now the majority, you should decide anyone from PAS to lead the opposition team. And we had a discussion among ourselves during our meeting, Perikatan National meeting, and he proposed for PAS to have anyone. And, to Guru Haji Adi mentioned during the meeting and said that they had a discussion among themselves, PAS, and they would like me to take the lead as an opposition leader. I was quite surprised then because it was not planned.
Okay, you didn't lobby for this role?
No, of course not, because I was only a Secretary General who was supposed to work for the president, for the party. So, and then I threw it back to the president. I said, sir, I don't know. I don't know how to answer it. And I said, I give back to you. It's up to you now. And he said, no. Since PAS already decided and said, want you to be an opposition leader, and he himself, and said that, I agree, 100%, I'll give you the support. And I was quite surprised, and I took it because, everyone was actually really would like to see me as an opposition leader in the parliament.
Okay.
Not as a leader of Perikatan National.
I see.
That's two different things here. As a leader of Perikatan National, Tan Sri remained as our chief, as our chairman. But as an opposition leader, we have, to gather all the MPs to talk and to discuss. And I think maybe they would like to see me to play that role.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, we will have to take any one of them between Tan Sri Muhyiddin and also Tan Sri to Guru Haji Adi. So they probably think maybe give someone like me to take the lead as an opposition leader.
Okay, but in that sense, this appointment shouldn't be taken as the traditional signal that you will automatically be the next prime minister. I think Perikatan National works differently. From what you're telling me, it really does work on consensus and discussion, and it's open, essentially.
Yeah, but you can see the history. When we were the government before, it is a functional government. It is not about that person. We would like to function accordingly. So we give to people who can deliver.
Okay.
That's more important than to decide who's going to be the next prime minister, who's going to take the lead and all that. Because I think, we understand each other better than anyone else.
So you're looking for outcome rather than position and status,
You're right.
essentially.
You're right.
Can I ask you a question on perceptions that Bersatu is riding on the coattails of PAS, particularly in elections? Because PAS has the superior machinery and it does have the loyalty of the grassroots. We've seen several Bersatu election candidates contest under the PAS banner, but we don't see vice versa. So would you say that PAS is the big brother in this partnership and Bersatu the little brother?
You see, number one is when you talk about the two between Bersatu and PAS. PAS has been around almost 70 years. And you can see that members the party have been developed since 1950s. Whereas we just formed our party 8 years ago. And then for people to come and join on board of our party, they would like to see and they give chance to us. I think all of us, we feel proud to say for 8 years, after 8 years, we are here now. And for that, I think you look at elections, general elections, who actually believe that for a young party like ours, Bersatu, can win? We won 31 seats out of 222. That, when we do not include those from GRS, they were actually, when they became our representative, they were actually representing us, Perikatan National.
Okay.
How many of them? 6 of them. So otherwise, it is 37 of us. And PAS won by 44. It's almost equal.
So you're saying, right, in your very first elections, you managed to gain 30-odd number of seats, right? Some would argue that you should have won the elections first before going into government. That wasn't the path for Bersatu. But ultimately, in GE15, you managed to win the seats and to form a formidable opposition with PAS. And as you pointed out, PAS has that history of machinery. So, of course, they have that machinery on the ground. But I do want to point out that even in states where PAS is a fortress, such as Kelantan, that hasn't guaranteed success, as we've seen in the recent Nenggiri by-elections. I saw you on social media. You were very hard at work campaigning all across the district, but PN lost by an overwhelming majority of over 3,000 votes. Previous elections, the margin was only a couple hundred votes. So I have to ask, is PN losing its appeal among your core constituency?
Right, and I tell you this. You asked me this question after Nenggiri. If that question was given to me after in Penang,
Sungai
Bakau, it's going to be different. Are you telling me that at that time, PN is getting stronger? I mean, it's not fair when you ask that kind of question. The only thing is that I want to answer you is by telling you this. First, Nenggiri was always in the history belongs to UMNO. They were very strong in Kelantan. In the history of Kelantan, never before, whether it is parliamentary or even a state seats in Gua Musang, other party could ever won. That was before. But the last elections before Nenggiri, certainly, we won. We won the parliamentary seat, and we also won 2 seats in that parliamentary. So it shows that people started to believe that why UMNO? We should give a chance to others, for example.
Okay.
Then came back to PRK. Why suddenly we lost? There are many issues that actually decided at that time why we lost.
I think that's a fair point, Datuk Sri. And you did raise Sungai Bakap. You're right. PN won by a bigger majority in the Sungai Bakap by-elections than it did previously. So I think we can say that, yes, different states will have different factors, and there's really hard to say there's one trend based on just that one by-election, right? Which brings me to ask, does that make the Mahkota by-elections even more important for PN? If we take a look at what analysts say, the outcome isn't going to change the balance of the Johor State Assembly, but is victory important for the morale of PN and Bersatu?
All right. I would like to tell you this. When it comes to our party, Perikatan Nasional, our coalition now, you should see who are the majority supporters. The Malays are the majority. When it comes to Mahkota, the percentage of voters there, the Malays only about 51%. 49% is the non-Malays. If you look at that, it shows that it is tough for us to win. Because even if UMNO can just steal 5% of it, we lost. We are going to lose. So that shows that actually it is a tough seat for us. It's not fair for us to everyone tell us, this is very important for you. You must. But we know, we just want to prove that the Malays are still with us. The support of the Malays are still with us. Is that will be good enough, even if we lose.
Okay. I want to ask Datuk Sri, is Muda supporting PN in the Mahkota by-elections? This is something that your colleague Datuk Sri Azmin Ali had mentioned. I'm curious if you can confirm that Muda is campaigning for PN.
It's nothing wrong for Muda to come to be with us. They are not officially with us, but many others, not only Muda, Berjasa for that matter, Putra, they are all coming on board to work for our candidate. So it shows that actually, even NGOs, it shows that, there are many groups of people that would like to give support to us. And we welcome everyone, including Muda.
I would like to turn now to the issue that is percolating among the headlines at the moment. And you're a Perak native. You've been MP for Larut, your hometown, I believe, since 2008. So you have experienced being a pro-government MP during the administrations of Barisan Nasional, Pakatan Harapan, and Perikatan Nasional, as well as currently you're in the opposition under the Madani government. So you have experienced firsthand the discrepancy when it comes to constitutional development funds, or CDF, let's call that for short, yeah. Yet despite the difficulties that you face, as you've experienced as both MP for government and opposition, you, or Perikatan Nasional, they've rejected the draft MOU proposed by the Madani government that would provide this funding for opposition members. Are you renegotiating these terms, or are you completely against the idea of an MOU for CDF?
I would like to start on the history. CDF actually was promoted by PH during the general election. They told everyone in this country, if they want, they would like to see everyone, each individual will get the CDF. We, in the other hand, would like to see that this is a fair distribution of whatever fund that we have. Then, at the moment when I saw what Fadila came out with a statement to say, there's some distribution that they would like, some obligation that they would like Perikatan Nasional to do based on the MOU. Initially, they said the MOU is a strict, it is not, and it's got to be rahsia. But now I would like to tell you, Shazana, and they changed it and say, okay, I would like everyone to know about the MOU.
So I read the MOU, I read the draft MOU. There is actually a clause there that says this is meant to be open and made public. This was a similar clause that was under the first MOU that was signed under Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri's premiership. Are you saying that that clause wasn't present in the draft that was given to you?
Yeah, of course. The thing is like this now. Once they put that as Russia, and I would like to everyone to understand here, we study. Why is it got to be secret? If it is under Official Secrecy Act, we have got to be very careful to understand what an MOU for.
Okay.
And we study each and every one of the clauses that have been given to us.
Okay.
And we realized, hey, this MOU now is something that will not, I don't want to use, not to shut us up, but I think maybe it is a way, very subtly, of changing the constitution. Don't you think that the most important thing in our country is to uphold the constitution? You must look at certain clauses there. And that's why I immediately replied and I said that we disagree with the MOU based on the 4 fundamental grounds.
That's right. Let's go into that. So in your statement on 15 September, you cited 4 factors for rejecting the MOU. The first one was that the MOU violates the federal constitution by threatening the rights and privileges of Malays and Bumiputras. Can you explain to me, how does the draft MOU do that? How does it affect the rights of Malays and Bumiputras when in the draft text it specifically states that the federal constitution, which enshrines these protections, that's the basis for this agreement?
You see, when you talk about fundamental, you talk about you have to talk about something which is stable and consistent to whatever that you have said in the MOU.
Right.
Here you said based on the Constitution, but when it comes to the detailed part, you go against the Constitution.
Can you share with me what detailed part that is?
I'll give you one example. Like, okay. In one of the clauses there, H, I don't know whether I should read it.
Please feel
Can I?
free. Of course.
Ahli Parlimen tersebut selanjutnya mengakui dan mengisytiharkan bahawa Perlembagaan Persekutuan dan Sistem Demokrasi Berparlimen yang diamalkan di Malaysia adalah berdasarkan prinsip bahawa semua manusia dilahirkan bebas dan saksama, fair. Bermaruah, fair. Mempunyai hak asasi dan kebebasan tanpa sebarang perbezaan dari segi bangsa, warna kulit, etnik atau agama, dan mempunyai hak untuk mendapatkan perlindungan sesama daripada sebarang bentuk diskriminasi atau hasutan terhadap sebarang bentuk diskriminasi. And I tell you, when you talk about privileges
that's Article 8 of the Constitution, Dato' Sri.
No. You look at Article 153. It is a discrimination because we give privileges to the Malays' rights.
And I think that's recognized also in Article 8, which looks at the broader situation. So
No.
I would disagree to say that clause it discounts Article 153. But I take that's how you interpret this wording.
Yeah.
So you're not happy with how this is worded?
That's why I said it is a subtle way of changing the Constitution.
Okay, so are you going to come back to them then with other alternative wording? Because they have said they're open to negotiations. Will you be negotiating for wording?
Yeah, if they call us for a negotiation, it's a different thing. But now, they would like us just to answer and say, okay, that's it. If they give it to us and say, okay, now, why don't we form a committee and we sit down, whether this is okay or not? Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so you want them to take the role. You want them to invite you to the meeting room and have this discussion. You're not going to make the first move, essentially.
But this is what we used to do when we were in the government before, during Ismail Sabri.
Okay.
I was the one who chaired the committee.
You called them, you invited them, you made all the
and
arrangements.
we sit down and say, okay, this is this. What do you think? And say, okay, this is fair, this is not fair, we like to do this, we want to include this and this. And I said, okay.
Okay.
That should be the way.
Understood.
Not by just giving us like this. And I said, hey, what is this?
Understood. I want to ask, would you agree to an MOU that was similar in content and spirit as to what was decided during Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri's time? So if the wording was the same as that, maybe with updates just to reflect the current situation,
why not?
You would be happy to sign on to that MOU for CDF?
Yeah, as long as it is fair for everyone, and I think we should go ahead with it.
All right. I mean, I think that's a great point, and I hope the government is listening. I want to come back to the stance of Bersatu, I think. Bersatu and Perikatan Nasional. So you have a very staunch position as defenders of Malay rights and Bumiputra rights, and that was the main reason given for rejecting this MOU. I want to get your thoughts on what you think the Madani government is doing that's threatening or harming the rights and privileges of Malay Bumiputra. So you pointed out this wording in this MOU as one such thing. Are there any other initiatives or policies that you see being implemented to this effect, or is it still in the form of rhetoric? Are we still looking at just rhetorical statements?
No, it is not rhetoric. Because why I said this? When you talk about another clause here, I mentioned it. See, they mentioned about. Let me read it here again. ahli parlimen tersebut juga menyatakan komitmen bahawa beliau akan menahan diri dari membuat sebarang kenyataan atau ucapan atau perbuatan sama ada secara lisan atau bukan lisan yang bersifat kebencian atau menggunakan sebarang bentuk bahasa yang merendahkan atau mendiskriminasikan mana-mana pihak atau kumpulan sama ada atas dasar agama, kaum, etnik, warna kulit, asal-usul, jantina, kewarganegaraan atau apa-apa faktor identiti yang lain. What kind of identity you're talking about?
Okay.
We talk about value system in our country. I think the values in our society is different. And don't compare ourselves with some Western countries there.
Okay, I don't think
that's why I say we would like to sit down and say, hey, what is this?
Okay.
We have to be proper here. If you say that you want to follow our constitution, a basic principle, and I want you got to be with fundamentally according to our constitution.
Okay, understood, Datuk Sri.
That's why I answered you just now by saying, hey, yes, don't do it very subtle of changing the constitution. By us agreeing to this, if you want to change the constitution by putting all sort of things,
I would argue, Datuk Sri, that it takes a lot to change the constitution.
Correct.
They would still need to table it in Parliament, have it debated, have it voted on.
Correct.
And I think it's not something that they can do through this MOU.
through the MOU, shouldn't do that.
But so I take your point. You need to discuss it with them. I want to come back to the issue of Malay rights, and Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, the president of Bersatu, was recently charged with sedition over remarks that he made involving the former Yang di-Pertuan Agong while campaigning during the Negeri by-elections. Does this narrative harm the image of Bersatu as the defender of Malay rights, given that the royal institution is viewed as the guardian of Islam and Malay culture? I mean, is this case not damaging to that image?
No, I tell you this. It is just a political persecution. If you really look at the video, listen to the video, you know what happened? He actually did not harm anyone there.
You don't think that he was casting doubt or casting aspersions on the decision of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong?
He was just talking about facts. The facts remain, at that time, we got 152. And we got 115. So if he got 115, by rights, he should be appointed as a Prime Minister.
You don't see that as challenging the decision of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong?
No. If we want to challenge, we have to challenge immediately after that. Why don't we challenge it at that time? We accept it. The fact that Agong has already appointed someone to be a Prime Minister. Okay, that's it. Have you seen us going all over the country, do demonstration, go against the decision? No. He was just trying to remind everyone, at that time, we got 115.
Okay. Has an explanation been given to the Pahang Palace, perhaps, to explain the reasoning for this, that it's not meant an offence?
I mean, it's not fair for me to answer in that manner. But I think, when it comes to this issue, we do not want to debate in the open. That's between us and the palace.
Okay.
And I think, for example, like me, all of us, not only myself, even Tan Sri himself, we uphold the law and the constitution of this country. So when we talk on a factual basis.
Okay.
It is not about us going against anybody, going against any decision. No, the facts remain. At that time, he got 115. That's it.
Okay. All right. I want to come back to something earlier that you said, Datuk Sri, about the Mahkota by-election. So that was quite an astute observation, the fact that Mahkota is a mixed urban seat, and 51% of it is, 49% of it is non-Malay, which would make it difficult for Perikatan Nasional to win the seat, although you're going to try. I want to extrapolate this to the broader support of the non-Malay communities in Malaysia then, because it's very clear 80% of the non-Malay communities vote for Pakatan Harapan, and I'm wondering, what are you doing to change that balance?
It is not that easy. but we'll try our best.
How are you trying? Because as you
see,
said,
for example,
you prioritize Malays. You prioritize Malay rights and privileges.
Correct.
Why
But at the
would they
same time, we would like to be fair to everyone. You see, when it comes to this, when we were in the government before, don't you think that we are fair to everyone?
Were you
Did you really think that we only looking after the Malay rights? No. We actually work for everyone, even Sabah and Sarawak. I would like to remind you here, we were the first. Tan Sri Muhyiddin was the first one who created a ministry looking after MA 63, the agreement between Sabah, Sarawak and Malaya at that time.
But still, Datuk Sri, the rhetoric within Perikatan Nasional, the upholding of Islamic supremacy, of Malay privileges, even as rhetoric, that is concerning to non-Malays and non-Muslim communities. And even, like you said, when you saw rhetoric that you felt could harm Malay rights, you also bristled and you stood back. So isn't it understandable that the non-Malay communities would not find PN appealing when you're also using those kinds of statements?
The facts remain. There's discrimination under our constitution, the Malay rights. People can just say that's a discriminating clause inside that, or discriminating act. Yes, but that was what the history is all about. You cannot just go back and say, "Oh, that's not fair" during that time, and suddenly you have to change it. I mean, come on. I do not want to go into that basics. The basic principle remains that all of us must accept the fact that was what written those days. So it is not talking about the Malay rights. I'm talking about fairness, which been agreed upon by our leaders before.
Times changed, Datuk Sri, but
Correct.
I take your point.
Correct, but don't do it on a MOU. No, you sit down with us. What is the real proposal here? What do you want to go? Okay, we can just agree and disagree on certain things, but not just putting here and ask us to sign, and suddenly we can't even talk about that issue anymore. Is that fair?
Datuk Sri, one clear positive from the changing Malaysian political landscape is the fact that we now have, on both government and opposition benches of parliament, MPs with experience in governing the country. You know, that was seen during Perikatan Nasional's time when we saw PH MPs that did have governing experience, even though with just 2 years. And we see that now with Perikatan Nasional. And you've set up your own portfolio committees to shadow and respond to what the Madani government is doing.
Yeah.
So what is Perikatan Nasional's alternative vision to the Madani economy framework touted by Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim?
See, whatever that he has done, if it is something good for the people of this country, we won't against. We will never go against. But if there is something that we have to come out, and for the rights of the people, for the people of this country, I will definitely stand out and fight for the people of this country. What do I want? What do you want to be Malaysians? Or of course, we want to have a good, progressive nation. And to do that, we want to have an equal distribution of any wealth in this country.
Datuk Sri, do you view the subsidy rationalization drive by the Madani government as necessary? Is this a move that you support?
See, the point is this. You have to look at the basic principle again. And when I say it is a fair distribution of our wealth, you have to look at the basic principle, demography of this country. You have those people, top 20, you have M40, you have another B40. So, if you think that at the moment the wealth is got to be distributed in that manner, why not?
So you're in favor of subsidy rationalization as long as there are also targeted subsidies to help those in the lower income brackets.
This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay.
But as long as it is fair for everyone, it is proper for any country to have a good group of people that can create harmony in this country.
Is there any part of the economic portfolio of the Madani government that you disagree with?
You see, when we talk about creating a new wealth, of course, Madani government at the moment is trying to tell everyone going into AI to make sure we have good technology. Yeah, but that is creating a new wealth. But at the same time, I would like to see when you have this kind of distribution or this kind of wealth, the fair distribution is again, and I would like to make sure the government is looking into it. You see, when we look at tackling cost of living, for example, I don't know whether you realize it or not. Rice, for that matter. Why in the previous government, since independence, nobody shout about rice issue? But today, the issue is so overwhelming that you can't even get the local rice. This is something which I say, something is wrong somewhere.
It could be climate change, Datuk Sri. I think we have been seeing weather patterns that are affecting the supply of domestic rice, among other things, as well as abroad.
So you think we have got enough rice that produced in our country?
I'm saying we have never been self-sufficient with rice production.
Correct, I agree with you. But why the last few years, when we have 65% produce of rice in our country, we managed to distribute evenly to the people, to those especially B40. Okay. But suddenly today, you can't even get that rice anymore.
Okay, so this is one of the things that you're seeing is a clear gap in what the Madani government is doing. Food security, right?
Food security is very important in this country.
So you say that Perikatan Nasional wants to be the voice of concern, to really express the concerns of the people like this rice issue. But I'm wondering if you're doing enough outreach to get the swath of the public, and there's a big public that maybe are not convinced by Malaysia Madani, but they also may not see PN as their microphone or ampliphone or their voice, because there's chatter in social media that they see figures outside of parliament like Kari Jamaluddin and Sharil Hamdan. They're doing a better job at being opposition than the MPs in parliament to make the grievances of the public heard. Do you think that's a fair criticism?
The point is this. Maybe our groups, like Bersatu Member of Parliament, we were not used to be in opposition. We do not know how to actually coming up with agenda to talk about certain issues and all that. Maybe. But you talk about experience. I think we have enough experience. We have enough flying hours from all our Member of Parliament. Most of us is actually being in the government before. I used to be in the government before, in Bersatu Nasional. After that, I was also in Perikatan Nasional, in the government. And now, suddenly, I become an opposition leader. There are so many issues. We came out, we talk about all the issues in the parliament. Whether being resolved or not resolved, another matter. But we have been talking about all those issues. And I realize it has not been resolved. Especially just now when I mentioned about rice. It's not been resolved.
Okay.
And do you want us to talk about rice every day? I don't think so.
Okay, understood. So there is a sort of, how to say, adjustment period, because you say some MPs may not be used to being in opposition. I would say that you will need to improve on that communication.
Correct.
To get people
I agree
see that you have flying
I
hours,
agree
even
with
if you have it, if they don't see it.
Right.
And speaking of seeing, I mean, rightly or wrongly, the public tend to measure the productivity of an MP through their attendance in Parliament. And PN MPs don't have a stellar record of parliamentary attendance. I mean, based on public data, the top PN MPs are also the ones with the highest absentee rate. Is it fair for the public to judge MPs based on their parliamentary attendance? I mean, I think you yourself, it's less than 55% according to public data.
That's wrong.
But that's, okay, you disagree with that data?
Yeah, I disagree because I attended all the parliamentary sessions, except for a few days when I was not around, when I was sick. And I submitted my MC actually to the parliament.
Would you support the public record of attendance? Should that be made public? I think the House Speaker has mentioned something about putting the public attendance on the parliamentary website.
I tell you, if you look at the history, when we were in the government before, I can just come out and tell them when they were in the opposition, they did the same thing. But it is not fair for us to use that as an element or something to be exposed to the public and say this flood did not come. I mean, that's not fair, because as a member of parliament, you have other duties to do too. So it is not about the attendance in the parliament. It is about you fighting for the rights of the people. I think that is basic principle for everyone to understand being a member of parliament. It is not only your duty in the parliament, it is also your duty outside the parliament.
Okay, so the onus is then on the MP to make sure that they communicate this to the public and the voting public. Datuk Sri, since becoming the opposition, Bersatu has been the target of multiple corruption investigations, which you claim are in bad faith, including the corruption case against Bersatu chairman Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. Even people close to your circle, they've been charged in court. Do you trust the judicial system to oversee a fair trial?
This is what I'm asking for. A fair trial for everyone. Because we, as a politician, we believe that it is a political persecution. For example, Tan Sri Muhyiddin, our president, Bersatu president, when we discuss about all those issues being created, to me, that's crap. If we were in the position as before in the government, if anyone in the opposition did the same thing, we won't bring them to court. Because, there is no, so far, political funding, there is no real law to it.
Okay, so that is where you think they should be focusing on rather than political persecution of political members.
Right.
Datuk Sri, you were once the former Minister of Home Affairs. Do you regret not taking steps to repeal the Sedition Act or put guardrails to prevent abuse by the state to limit the ways that a state can do political persecution? Is that something of a missed opportunity for you? Or do you think those laws are still necessary?
This is all depend on the government.
So if it's a benevolent government, it's fine.
If I'm in the government, you need that act for certain issues, but not for, this kind of political persecution. And you have to be fair to the individual. It doesn't matter whether that guy is a president or just an ordinary person. If they are doing something wrong against the constitution of this country, why not take action against them? But now at the moment, I don't think it is fair for the government of the day. You just take action against the principal officers of opposition parties. Is that fair?
You don't think they're doing it based on evidence?
No.
Datuk Sri, there are no shortage of naysayers who predict that the end is nigh for Bersatu, that it will be swallowed up by PAS or implode as a result of internal factionalism. Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin is currently the glue that holds everyone together. But what's going to hold the party together if he's no longer in the picture? What is your case for Bersatu's longevity?
It's all about perception. But to be very frank with you, and to the people of this country, PAS and Bersatu, we have an understanding. We have been working closely as one family. We would like to see the future not only meant for us, Perikatan National, but for the people of this country. As what you mentioned just now, the perception is that we are just fighting for the Malay rights. And I think it is not fair also, because we have got our Gerakan there, MIPP there.
Some people would argue that you don't even respect your Gerakan and MIPP members. It's
that's
not
not
MIPP,
right.
It's Gerakan. They have raised issues in the past.
I'll give you one example. How many seats that we went for general election for Gerakan to be our candidates? Quite a number. The percentage is actually quite high.
But
then the people do not vote for them. Is that fair for us to blame the Perikatan National of not having a member of parliament?
But do you fight for the concerns of Gerakan? They have raised in the past about rhetoric that they feel is harmful to non-Malay communities. That's something Perikatan National doesn't back. Can that...
No. This is what we have already agreed to disagree on certain issues. And that's why we have meetings regularly among all the presidents and all that. And now it's for us to plan in the future what is supposed to be said by leaders of Gerakan and what is not supposed to be said by the leaders of Bersatu or PAS. Nothing, we will sit down and say, okay, this, and we will give back to the people of this country and say, okay, this is what we agreed upon. And the people can just say, why don't you allow certain things here and there? And I think we will change it basically to be inclusive, to make sure that everyone is on board with us.
Datuk Sri, we'll be watching very closely. Thank you very much for speaking with me today.
Right. Thank you, Susanna.
I've been speaking to Datuk Sri Hamzah Zainudin, MP for Larut, Leader of the Opposition and Secretary General of Bersatu. This has been The Breakfast Grill on BFM 89.9.